might be able to fix that.
Wait, what?
The images for like my stream stuff crash every once in a while. Alright, it is working now.
Okay.
Alright, let me get to the right scene. Alright, so this is Bronze Boot Camp. It's hosted by the Trinity Force Podcast every Saturday at noon Eastern Time for players Silver 5 and below to receive feedback on their gameplay. The VODs are commented on by 2 higher elo players, uploaded to YouTube, streamed on Twitch so you guys can see it afterwards. If you're not playing, you can watch. If you just kind of want general advice, basically anything you want to do with it. There are 3 games every Saturday at noon Eastern Time. You can sign up at trinityforcepodcast.com under the Battle Arena tab. We also, Bronze Boot Camp, well, I guess it is the Battle Arena tab. But there are 2 things you can click there. So that gets into Battle Arena. That's every Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Same thing as Bronze Boot Camp. We have 3 games, but that's for Gold 1 and below. So if you're a little higher elo, but you still want feedback on your gameplay, I would certainly check that out. But I don't know. I think that's about it for Bronze Boot Camp and Battle Arena. Gonna mix it up a little bit today, and we're gonna talk about one of the events going on in our community. So at 4 p.m., I would show up a little bit early, but it is 4 p.m. We are going to have T-Force Network beat down on the bridge. If you want information on it, head over to Reddit/T-Force Network. You'll see me for a second. Click the T-Force Network beat down on the bridge, and all the information is here. I don't know if you can still sign up or not. I've already signed up, so the button may not be available to me. But if you haven't and you can, click the sign up. If you haven't signed up, I would show up at the 4 p.m. Eastern Time right here. So August 8th, 4 p.m. And there'll probably be a spot. We're going to pick captains and do a draft. And all ranks from Bronze 2 Challenger can enter this tournament. So I would check it out. And let's make sure we're actually streaming. Yep. Alright, so we'll get into picking bands. We'll talk about some of the other stuff. I just don't want to do too many plugs, and I think the tournament kind of is the big thing going on today. So, first pick Lissandra. Pretty safe. Alright, so questions in chat. You don't need to be on a pre-made team to participate. We are picking captains. There'll probably be some of the higher elo players in the network, and then they'll do a draft. I'm not sure if it's round robin or just like a draft, but kind of think of it like fantasy baseball or football or something like that. And that is how we're picking teams. We're not doing pre-mades. And
it's like kickball in like elementary school where all the cool kids were the captains and they picked their teams.
Yeah. Alright, so I believe it is 4 p.m. Eastern Time. I may be wrong on that. That is what it says on the event page, and as from what I understand, it is 4 p.m., but when Fran Powers online, we'll have more information. So, for 4 p.m. Eastern Time is what I'm going with right now. Maybe I'll be a captain. Maybe. Alright, so picks and bans. Bans, nothing too off. I don't think any of them are bad. I don't agree with some of them, but it's not like they banned, I don't know, Garen. But usually picks, the 2 things I look for is people picking into bad matchups or people like picking a matchup that can like easily be counterpicked. Like Garen's something you don't, I don't know, I keep saying Garen, but
it's almost as if you don't like the champion.
Well, he's a good example because, in my opinion, he's the worst champion in the game right now.
Right.
But
that's why he's getting reworked.
Yeah.
Mordekaiser's a bot laner now? What? I don't know.
Yeah, why don't they just make Garen a bot laner? Give Judgment 700 range.
If you use Judgment on the dragon, you get dragon.
Yeah. Alright, so as far as picking is concerned, Lissandra's not a bad first pick. She can flex mid and top. So I don't have a huge issue with that. She does have some bad matchups mid and top, so like both lanes could counter pick you. She's a pretty safe laner. She's a functional champion. Let's see what else. We have 1 pick, 2 picks. Picking Vayne into Sivir's not my favorite. Like, so in Vayne, there are 2 things that can happen in a Sivir lane. Like, 1, Sivir does a lot of damage, and Sivir's pretty oppressing early if the Sivir player knows how to play, and Vayne can struggle in that lane. 2, even if the lane is going even, Sivir can just like W key the wave, and Vayne doesn't have a good wave clear. Like that is one of Vayne's biggest weaknesses that people don't talk about much. She does have pretty poor wave clear. That's why you don't see her into the Sivir matchup much, because regardless of what's going on, like if Sivir's team wants to do Dragon, Sivir just QWs the wave into tower and Vayne can't do anything. Like Vayne either has to give up the wave to go like contest Dragon, or I don't know. I really don't like Sivir into Vayne. I mean Vayne into Sivir.
Yeah, and especially in this particular bottom lane matchup, you're dealing with a Janna support as opposed to Leona support. There's really no... If Janna's playing well, Leona doesn't have an option to engage. That doesn't give Vayne really a strong, I would say, win condition in this lane. Sivir could just shove it all day, get bonus AD from Janna's shields, and just continue to shove and just farm safe and happy.
Yeah, this is difficult. I usually say that it's good to pick the champion you're most comfortable with. I do think it's good to have like at least 2 comfortable champions in every role, because picking Leona into Janna is like picking Leona into the absolute worst lane possible here.
Yeah,
it's really difficult for me. But we'll go into the rest of the lines. So that's generally how bot lane should play out as far as how it should. And Sivir and Janna, we basically talked about what they want to do. They want to bully, and if lane is close, so they want to do stuff on the map, just don't be afraid to pop Janna's shield and Sivir QW and push the wave. As far as Vayne and Leona is concerned, if they rush 2 first, they can do something. If Janna usually wants to take E at level 1. I think Q is a pretty bad level 1 in most lanes on Janna. And if Janna doesn't have 2 spells, she can struggle in level 2 in this matchup. Especially Sivir will usually start Q, and if Vayne can tumble Sivir Q at level 2, it's also a pretty favorable trade. After that, basically what you're trying to do on Leona at level 2 is you won't always get a kill, but you want to get summoners. And if you can get summoners, a lot of the times they won't have flash by the time you hit level 6, or you'll at least have summoner advantage, like at 4 or 5, and then you all in again. But just try and get summoner advantage, and then all in them. Don't all in them with summoners, though. Like, you can't kill a Sivir Janna lane with summoners unless they misplay really hard. So I guess you want to be aggressive, but you don't want to go too deep until you get summoner spells in this lane. Mid lane, Azir Vel'Koz. I haven't seen a lot of Azir since the nerf, in all honesty.
Yeah.
He lost a lot of his pressure. Vel'Koz also has really high base damages, and like the cost on his spells aren't that crazy. I think Azir has to farm in this lane and Vel'Koz has to pressure, but they kind of serve a similar function in team fights, and in all honesty, I've never even like seen Vel'Koz versus Azir. I don't know a ton about either champion.
Vel'Koz would probably ideally in this like lane, like most lanes, is just run a W max and just clear waves and just stay out of Azir's threat range with his Sand Soldiers. Level 6, I mean Vel'Koz's ultimate is a little bit longer than Azir's, so I would say if he sees the Sand Shoulders go on cooldown, he has an opportunity to harass there. But Azir, as long as Azir is not being too predictable in movements, I think he can find some variable trades, but I don't know. If Vel'Koz plays safe and just farms well with W, I think he'll be fine. And I think he'll hit a stronger power spike earlier just because of his passive and his ultimate being so powerful.
Functionally, too, a lot of times when a mid lane matchup is even, I start to look at stuff like junglers and top lane. And usually when you have a Rengar top lane, it's assumed that they will try and look mid. And we'll talk about that a bit when we talk about Rengar. But having Nautilus jungle and Rengar top, the Vel'Koz should be getting some pretty good ganks. And in all honesty, if Nautilus gets 6 and he ults mid, and then Vel'Koz uses knock up too, I really don't see how Azir lives.
Right.
So we are loading into game. Talk about top lane. It was Rengar versus... I have black screen. What was the other one?
Lissandra.
Alright. Yeah. So, the biggest thing Rengar needs to pay attention to is Rengar can do whatever he wants with the wave in this matchup, and Lissandra has to like choose between pushing the wave and keeping the wave where she wants it with her spells, or using her Q to trade with Rengar. So Rengar wants to just like make sure when he harasses Lissandra, he's not hopping on the creeps Lissandra wants to be hitting, or hopping on creeps at all. So like don't hop onto your own casters and stuff like that. Let's see what else is this matchup. Lissandra really wants to like not leash. Nobody wants to leash or do camp start in this matchup, which is a little different. So neither jungler wants to be starting top here, because they'll screw their top laner really over. And I expect them to both be up there at like 150 and jockey for position on the wave, because Lissandra's going to want to drag the wave away from the bush, and Rengar's going to want to like hit the first wave and drag it towards bush. But Rengar can cheese this lane early. Like especially when you're Rengar here, what you want to be checking is you want to click Lissandra's portrait, and if you don't see either, wow, rip, 9 in defense, which usually means like 650 health or more for most people, or like 30 armor, which means armor yellows. If one of those two things is missing, you just kill your laner and Rengar. So, what side is Rengar? Red side. Purple. So there's an interesting cheese you can do on Rengar, and I am using another scene because my images are broken. Alright, so there's a cheese you can do on Rengar. If you do small golem top lane, you can, I think it's 4 or 5 creeps. I haven't played Rengar in a while. But it's quite a few less creeps, and you can actually hit 2 on the first wave. You'll come to a lane missing a little bit of health, but it can be pretty effective if you want to run it. Ooh. Alright, so I was wrong. For those of you watching, the tournament is at 3. And 1 second, I'm going to message somebody about that. And we are loading into game. You will see the game in 1 minute. And I'm really sorry for the delays. I told everyone 4 p.m. because that's what the website said, but after talking with the tournament organizer, it looks like it is at a different time. So we'll go with 3 for now. And just let me drag portraits. But basically, Lissandra's goal in this is she wants to play off lane here. So if Rengar jumps on creeps, she can Q and she'll be safe because Rengar can't gap close to the creeps and gap close her. She still needs to be careful even playing off wave once Rengar starts to approach 4 or 5 points, because he can go for the 5-point bola as a gap closer. So if you play off wave and you play around that as Lissandra, this is a reasonable lane. And just go like 2 or 3 Dorans into... you can either go Morellas or Hourglass after 2 or 3 Dorans, but it's important to just get those Dorans items and keep Rengar down. And Rengar went Longsword 3-pot. It's fine. As Rengar, you just want to drag wave close and play on wave. Assuming Lissandra plays correctly and she plays off wave, you'll be playing on wave and you'll just be stacking points. And either trying to push and like make her run out of mana and just control the wave, and then like maybe roam into the other team's jungle, or hop onto the creep and then 5-point bowler her if she's playing too passively. But Lissandra really needs to be playing like as close to the river as she can. That's generally most Rengar matchups though. And that would be true too for new Teemo. There's just certain champions you don't want to play bush. Bot lane's the same thing too. If you can't ward out a bush, you kind of want to play river most of the time, because they can just abuse bush vision on you. So, Sivir started W. I'm not a huge fan of W on Sivir. It's okay if you want to push early, so hopefully she does that. Janna also started Q. Q does nothing in this matchup at level 1 for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Q to harass is really bad on Janna. Q is a reactive spell. Anytime you use Q, Leona can just harass you for free, and oftentimes you can't do anything about it or disengage. Q also costs 90 mana, and it only does 60 damage. Like, Q to harass is absolutely terrible.
Yeah.
On Janna, oh, I'm sorry.
Oh no, I was gonna say, yeah, shield at like level 1 is really great just because you're able to absorb that early level 1 poke, and it also gives your 80 bones, or you give it to yourself as well. Oh, nice all in there.
Oh, looks like Rengar got a kill. You basically, Sivir got away with this for free, and Leona did too. So if both teams were to play this lane correctly, Sivir would come to wave with either Q or W, and Janna would just shield Sivir so she could push for 2 as fast as she could, and Janna would walk up and start autoing casters too, and maybe hit Leona if Leona tries to auto creeps, which Leona needed to be autoing creeps at level 1 and not going for like the whatever spell that is her ass. Q her ass. Shield of Daybreak. Alright, so there are a couple of things wrong with this. Leona will still die. One, you know Leona's already dead as Volibear. Whoa, look at mid. But you know Leona's already dead as Volibear. You really want to hold your toss for flash. There's no reason to be throwing that early. But Leona, you don't want to engage on a creep wave like that either. You have level 3 Vayne, and if you tank a creep wave against Janna, shields have more effective damage than you with shields. Do you see what happened mid?
It looks like Nautilus ganked did a lot of damage. Vel'Koz just came in with the Ignite to finish.
Alright, so important point here for Azir that you lost 2 summoner spells. One, you need to be pointing out that the Vel'Koz lost summoner spells too, so that your jungler knows that. And Volibear can pretty easily gank a Vel'Koz without summoner spells. The other thing you want to be taking note of is you don't have flash barrier. Really important to buy wards when you recall. This pink is okay, but I'm not a huge fan. I would have gotten a green. So Nautilus is coming bottom. And he's got this. It's good that he's not clearing and he's going for the gank. Oh. So just orb walk on top of Sivir right there until her spell shield is up, and then proc your passive as Nautilus. You have no reason to auto attack her until her E's up. She can't really gap close too. You can just continue to walk on top of her as long as you want. But you guys still did get the kill, which is good. Not really sure why though. I really think Sivir should have flashed to healed. I think that was kind of a mistake.
Yeah.
So Not is going around for the gank mid. Really good roam by Leona. But Volibear does have his passive. So that was a good idea by Not. I guess it was a good idea to continue to go because Leona was there, but it is really difficult when your mid lane gets chunked out that hard. Vel'Koz just needs to ult. Yeah. That's kind of a misplay on Azir's part. If you're playing someone like Vel'Koz, you can't stay in lane with less than 25% health if you're in ult range. It's like playing an Annie if she has flash and you have like 40% health. You just have to recall.
Yeah.
because she can just combo you whenever she wants. Alright, so what's top lane look like? Lissandra's coming back. She's got 3 Doran's rings, which is kind of what she needs in this matchup. So Rengar's got 5 points. This is pretty good. He has 2 options, and you kind of have 2 options whenever you get a lead on Rengar top. You can try and kill your lane and stay top, or you can shove out and push. I would freeze lane right here, just to deny. It is hard though, when you don't have TP, if you freeze in front of tower like this and they TP, you get punished really hard because it's hard to take tower. I'll make a note, as a Rengar player, you don't want to throw your E's that quickly. You need to be throwing big E and then like holding little E. You, like halfway through the duration for your first E, you used second E, and you like, I don't know, slows don't stack anymore. And CC doesn't really stack. Like if you have them snared, the slow doesn't stack. So you don't get anything out of the second E there. Besides a DPS loss because you're not auto attacking in that time. E's good to hold too. E can finish once they get out of auto attack range. Autos can't. If you watch some really good Rengar players, especially junglers, there's a trick where you can do where you use your first E and then you use 5-point E, and then like your next E will come off cooldown before the 5-point E snares up. And effectively you're doing like slow into snare into slow, and you're getting a lot of CC off. This is a mess.
Yeah.
It's hard. I think red team just needs to be more decisive there. When you're playing against a Janna lane, once she starts getting second shield out and third shield out, you can't really expect to win 2v2s or 3v3s.
Right.
When you go into a 2v2 against Janna, you need to like know what you're doing. And if you have a target, you need to ping that target so your teammates go on it as well.
That just should have been a Vel'Koz laser right there.
Yeah, Z is really low. I don't know if he plays a lot of Vel'Koz or he's just not confident in the damage that his laser does, but
yeah.
I think he's afraid of Volibear. He went back into his jungle and started pinging it out. Alright, so there's a really good play for Vel'Koz here. Whoa, Rengar just killed Lissandra again.
Yeah.
Looks like he ulted and exhausted for it.
I don't know if the exhaust was absolutely necessary. Lissandra really didn't have an ult. And he pretty much had her dead already.
You know what the play for Azir is right here? Or the play he should have made like 5 seconds ago, or 10.
What's that?
He, before this wave got in a tower, he should have ulted it. By ulting that wave into tower, one, Azir doesn't have any health pots, which is why this play works. You're basically, like, either Azir tanks the whole thing and you die, or Azir, like, gets chunked by it and he gets to 5 or 10% and then you just shove wave into tower. A lot of times, even if you can't kill somebody, if you can ult them and they have no pots and put them at 10%, and you have a wave to shove in a tower, you just do it. Because you get, like, the EXP and CS advantage. I also don't think Vel'Koz's ult cooldown is that long. No, 110's not that bad for a mid laner.
Yeah, it's not that rough. Especially with Vel'Koz too, where like he works a lot off his bases, so like max CDR is really useful on him. I don't know. You gotta use those spells. Sometimes you gotta run that risk and just kind of learn like those limitations on like how much damage your spells are gonna do. And when you're in a situation where like Azir's not going, you know, pretty low, you might as well give it a throw. Those true damage procs are very powerful, especially with low health targets like Azir.
I don't entirely understand why the both mid laners are going Athenes here. Generally, Athenes is something you get into double AP, or like, I don't know, on really, really defensive champions. But on I can't even talk right now. On Vel'Koz, you just want the power spike as quickly as you can. I think Vel'Koz would go Morelos most games. And
Yeah.
Azir, you're playing into like 1 AP champion. Because you're playing into Vayne Rengar, you're not really getting much mileage out of the Athene's MR. I don't know, I'm not a huge fan of Athene's, it just feels really slow. Unless you really want the MR. That was good, Alessandra. She really wants to play off though. Like, she's playing up here right now where Rengar can jump up here. If she is farming the way from here, he really doesn't have a play.
Right.
And Volibear's farming his jungle. So pretty good build out of Volibear. We haven't talked about builds a lot this game. The Nautilus has rushed Righteous Glory. Generally you just want to rush Cinderhulk as fast as you can. There are a couple, or like the only thing you should be getting before Cinderhulk is tier 1 or Mobies. The reasoning behind this is, one, Cinderhulk is pretty strong by itself. It builds out of your jungle item and you've already invested like 700 into the Trailblazer, or 750. Two, Cinderhulk is safe, and sometimes if you don't get ganks off on like a a Nautilus or a Rammus or something, you need to like stay relevant and like not fall behind an EXP. And if you're not getting those ganks off, it's really hard to stay relevant with like, I don't know, Righteous Glory. It doesn't have that Sunfire effect to help you keep up on camps.
Yeah.
Oh. Vayne has 3 wards. I'm not so sure about that. I don't mind buying Pink Ward out of AD carry, but... And on the opposite hand too, Sivir doesn't have a Pink Ward. Even if your support has one, if you're playing AD carry against Vayne, you should probably be buying Pinks. So, Rengar went Tiamat. You could kill this Rengar pretty easily if you wanted to. Rengar is one of the easier champions to bait out. Especially like when Rengar comes back to lane, he usually goes straight back to the bush. And you can kind of like come up on the jungle. Like let's say a time like this where Rengar's been away for a while and Lissandra pings B. As blue team jungle, that tells me that the Rengar's wards are probably expired and you can probably just come up river and gank him. Oh boy. Oh boy. Wow. Lissandra really like wants to be using her TP to roam. This is one of the bigger mistakes I see in lower elo top lane, is people think when they're losing lane they have to use their TP to go back to lane over and over again because they're gonna lose farm at tower or whatever. It's better to lose a little bit of farm and a little bit of EXP and actually have a comeback mechanic. Whereas if you're, I don't know, if you have TP you can actually do things on the map. If you don't have TP and you keep TPing back when you're losing, either you keep dying, or best case scenario, you like lose, and the other top laner has more pressure on the map.
Especially if you're playing Lissandra, who has very strong teleport counter ganks and just cross engages across the map.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you might as well make the best use of that ult. If you can't use it to kill Rengar, then you can just turn around and make a play bot lane or mid lane when a fight's happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you're playing against a top that doesn't have TP, it's much easier to do. If you're playing against a top that has TP, sometimes it is better to go back to lane because they have TP too. And if you TP and they follow and they're stronger, it can turn out really badly. But if they don't have TP, it's pretty free. You can just roam and catch up whenever you want. That was a pretty good Luna ult.
Yeah. Oh, good tornado though.
Alright, so red team tanky on Dragon this long is probably gonna lose you the fight.
Oh,
Dragon just like killed your Vayne and almost killed your Vel'Koz. So some communication issues, even though it's a really good ult by Leona. Either Leona doesn't take that ult because her team is farming Dragon, or her team needs to follow up. Tanking at Dragon, kind of standing there, really. I don't know. It was difficult. So, Rengar killed Liss again. He needs to start doing something in the map, though. Even if you're winning like lane this hard, Rengar is... I don't know, I hate to say it because he's 4-0 and Lissandra's 0-4-0, but at like 35 or 40 minutes and it's straight at 5v5, Lissandra is more useful on the map.
Yeah.
Like, if you look at any high elo Rengar player, or most Rengar players, their average game time is way shorter than any other champion. Because it's like, that's kind of how Rengar plays. He wants to snowball and then just like crush people in one shot. And if you start to get into 5v5s, and especially if you get into late game when people start to buy like armor items and Guardian Angel and stuff, Rengar's not a strong champion. I mean, he's not bad, but he's no longer like as strong as he was mid game. So maybe do something on the map with it. You also have no reason to heal there. Like, this is kind of a mistake I see out of a lot of newer Rengar players as well. When you have 5 points, when in doubt, just sit on it. Wow, that Janna Q.
Yeah. Don't do it, Rengar.
So, I don't think that was a great play out of Rengar. You just gave them shutdown and assist.
Yeah, you were good just ulting and then just running away. You didn't have to go and try and pick off somebody. Because you just gave out some very important gold to champions you've been trying to keep down.
Hi guys, I tried to sign up, but it says I'd have 2 high rank 5s team, but I'm not on one. Put your IGN in chat, or yeah, put your in-game name in chat, and I'll check it out after this game. There's not a lot I can do while we're casting.
Yeah.
Alright, so as far as items go, the Jungle Nautilus doesn't have boots and mobility at 20 minutes. That's kind of a little more difficult for me to swallow. Like, Jungle Nautilus really wants to have move speed.
Yeah, I mean the same reason why you rushed out since you rushed Rice's Glory because you needed the movement speed, but you didn't upgrade boots, which gives you permanent movement speed.
Especially Mobies. Mobies are just like, it's like having half a Righteous Glory but all the time.
Yeah.
Well, unless you're in combat, but. So Rengar got assist for this, not a bad buy here.
Not a bad or a bad buy. I didn't quite catch that one.
It says not a bad buy.
Okay.
So that's a pretty good pink. They know he's there. Alright, so this is another mistake. He just like, you saw all of his points disappear there, but he didn't get anything out of it. He tried to proc 5-point Q, and he didn't do anything with it. Like, most of the time in Rengar, when in doubt, if you have 5-point E, you take it. It's almost as much damage as 5-point Q, especially until you get crit. Like, once you get crit, 5-point Q comes back pretty hard, but I don't know, it's almost as much damage, and it's just like, the CC on it's so strong. And it's not just strong because they're like standing still for that long. They're standing still for that long and you can do whatever you want to them. Like, they can't even flash out of 5-point E. This is kind of what I said. Rengar really needs to do stuff on the map. We see in these team fights or in these jungle scrimmages, Lissandra's still like a strong champion. No matter how hard you keep a champion down, if they have CC, they have CC.
Hey, she also itemized, I guess, very well considering how far behind she is. She got Lucidity Boots and Azonia's Hourglass, so she can just be that engaged champion that they need. You're from blue team.
So, in Bola Nation, you're silver 3. Bronze boot camp is for silver 5 and below. If you want to play in a game like this, we have Battle Arena Thursdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. It's the same thing as this, but it's for gold 1 and below. Kargan gave you a link. Just head over there and hit the Battle Arena tab, and there'll be information on what I'm talking about.
Alright, so I just watched a bunch of red players just walk into an Azir tower one by one and then just get killed by it. Don't do that. Kills are great and all, but if you're giving up kills, not great. And
oh wow, Vayne just tumbled into Azir tower.
Guys, come on!
Vayne spotting Bronze Boot Camp edition.
You know what? I feel like she was just doing what everybody else did. I think that was the popular thing to do.
Alright, so Volibear made a pretty big mistake too. I mean, respect tower damage, and anytime Rengar has 5 points, you have to play around his E to an extent.
Yeah.
Good play of this.
Good job.
Rip.
Still gonna die though.
So, the Hourglass wasn't bad to stop tower aggro, but you may just want to, like, you could have dropped it in like a second and then just repositioned yourself.
Yeah.
I don't understand. Alright, so this Rengar's copying what most Rengar mains do. And most Rengar mains do CDR boots. Some don't do CDR boots though, and I'll explain why you buy CDR boots on Rengar, although they're pretty expensive and they don't do damage. You buy CDR boots on Rengar so you can just have your ult up all the time to roam and pressure the map. If you go CDR boots and you're permanently going top on Rengar, you wasted the gold. In some games you won't be able to roam on the map as much, and those games are the ones you don't get CDR boots. But if you're actively like not roaming on Rengar, the CDR boots aren't doing anything for you. I mean, they let you get 5 points in frosting faster and so on and so forth, but like hitting your item power spikes earlier is a little more important if you're not going to be roaming. But that being said, I still think the build is fine. I think the issue with it is just that he didn't roam. And he's not in fights like this. I mean, this is like one of the worst things you can do. And we pull up gold. You have
all of the gold?
Almost 2,000 more gold. A little less. So you have like 1,800 more gold than the second highest person in your team. Not only were you top lane during that dragon fight, you weren't even pressuring top lane. Like, literally when that dragon fight broke out, you were farming golems. Yes, Bronze Boot Camp and Battle Arena both have signups now, Jaga.
Rip. Yeah, I think if Rengar had been around in that dragon pit, I think that team fight would have been a lot better for Red Team, considering he is Red Team's gold advantage.
Good job by Blue Team by buying a lot of pinks to deal with Rengar. Yeah. Rip.
Oh.
So they had this warded. They didn't have this warded, so he kind of got flanked by Volibear.
Yeah, he bit off a little more than he could chew.
Yeah. You just have to respect that, like, alright, so let's assume Volibear wasn't there. How effective is this play? Realistically, you can't kill Janna. Like, if Janna has Q, she just keys you out of jump, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So, that play doesn't, in effect, it doesn't do anything. And the best case scenario is nothing, and the worst case scenario is dying. And he did die because of it. Alright, so this is pretty bad. I see this out of a lot of supports. Exhausting to chase. Really, really not good. Now you don't have exhaust for Vayne here. You also overextended really hard. You only had your AD carry and support, and we're going to pull up the vision that you had. This is your vision. You couldn't see River. You couldn't see anything besides this. They could come from here, here, here. I mean, they did come from some of those places, but not really an effective play. That's a nice cat, Jaga 732. Volibear is pretty fun. Lissandra's
Yeah.
catching up and Azir's doing well. I think blue team is still in a pretty good spot. The John and Sivir just need to not be as cocky. That kind of struck me as a very cocky play. And Sivir's fed too, but Sivir's not like an AD carry that can 100 to 0 people like some other champions. She's not a Draven or a Graves.
I'm really wondering, like, in that situation, did Sivir have how long was Sivir holding that ultimate? Just like she used it at the very end after Janna had died, after they tried to chase down Vayne. I feel like if that was up earlier, they could have used that earlier. They might have been able to get away with that cheeky play.
I think they still would have got collapsed on. I don't think they had the damage.
Yeah.
And the reason I don't think they could have got away with that play is they didn't have sweeper up and they didn't have pinks. And anytime you don't have sweeper or pinks, your time to kill Vayne starts to go up really quickly. So you guys are doing a good job with vision control. I see one pink ward out of blue team, but wow, Vayne. But like, I don't know. You're playing against Vayne and Rengar. I should see a lot of pinks and sweepers in your inventories. I guess you guys have 2 upgraded sweepers now, which is good. As Sivir here, I may even forego. No, blue trinket's still good to have, but. So, a couple of notes on builds. The Nautilus has Boots of Swiftness. Okay against Janna, still not an effective boot. You're going to get a lot of more mileage out of the Mercury treads. The biggest reason you want Mercs here is you don't have a magic resist item, and you're playing against double AP. And it's kind of starting to show. Like, you're a lot squishier than you need to be. If the Leona didn't buy a locket, you'd be in an even worse place as well. So, that's sticking out to me.
Yeah.
Rylai's on Vel'Koz, I'm not a huge fan of that, and I'm not a huge fan of the Alacrity. A lot of gold, like 3,500 gold between those 2 items, dumped into not a lot of damage. If he had a Death Cap or Void Staff and a Blasting Rod, he'd be quite a bit scarier.
Yeah, Rylai's isn't something you necessarily need to buy on Vel'Koz in particular. He already has a lot of slows on his spells. His E is a displacement, or it's a suspension. His Q does have a slow effect on it, and your ultimate also has a slow. So you could actually go into a Haunting Guy's build and then itemize into other AP items. You don't necessarily need Rallies in the build. I know it has more AP and has a little bit of health, but there are better options overall. I would have liked to see a Haunting Guy's buy as opposed to that.
Yeah, I would have liked Haunting Guy's avoid stuff. Actually, I shouldn't have said Death Cop. I forgot it was Vel'Koz. But Vel'Koz has really high base values. His ratios aren't as extraordinary. So people usually just itemize Magic Pen.
Yeah, Vel'Koz is a really interesting mid-lane champion. He likes CDR more than anything else. I would almost, considering Vel'Koz's build, go into Lucidity Boots and then Morello's. Max out your CDR and then switch into Haunting Guys and then start building AP from that. So you just have more ultimates and more spells altogether, proccing more true damage.
On champions like Vel'Koz, Twisted Fate, champions that like the CDR a lot, you have 2 options in your mid lane build. You can either go the CDR boots and Morello's, or CDR boots and Athene's, but it's usually CDR boot Morello. Or you can go the CDR per level blues in a CDR thing.
Yeah.
So
and that'd be a good option too.
They're both pretty effective.
Yeah.
I think blues would be better on Vel'Koz because he's not going to get a lot out of AP level blues, and he probably don't need MR blues per lane. And that lets you get the penetration from Sorc shoes as well.
Yeah, and that will help synergize with his high base damages too. Yeah, I like that.
Alright, so what else do we have going on for builds? Janna. Azir, same thing, not a big fan of the Rylai's.
Yeah.
You're playing against Rengar. Like, your options are to do damage or to live. And by doing Rylai's, you're kind of picking like a not so great in between. I would go Hourglass or a hard AP item. On a champion of slows, Rylai's is strictly worse too, because slows do not stack anymore. It just picks the highest slow.
That was a really good ultimate by Azir.
Yeah, blue has a lot of chance to scale in good team fight.
Yeah.
The only thing I'm seeing them like mess up a lot on team fights is they really like need to buy pinks and deal with the vision control a little bit more, but could be worse. Like one person in your team wants to be dropping a pink or probably a pink behind your backline for Rengar, just to give you time to react here. Like sometimes you don't need to play around Rengar that strictly, but when he's like literally the only thing keeping them in this game, it's a little better. AKA if Rengar's fed, sometimes you need to play a little cautiously.
Yeah,
a little more cautiously.
Blue team's got a really good disengage, counter engage. You've got a Janna and you've got a Deer. Wow.
Alright, so a couple issues with this. The blue team, the biggest issue is Sivir stood on this wall up here. I assume they're just going to get wiped, so I'm not going to watch this too much.
Okay.
So, the Sivir stood up on the wall over here. She should be playing off over here, knowing that the other team is there. That allows her team to effectively peel her a little bit more. And more of the team should in general. Also, you need to be expecting Rengar ult, and this kind of goes to like me talking about having pink wards in effective places. They have 2 in this bush, but nobody put a pink on Baron. And when you're taking an objective like this, you need to be putting pink on Baron. So
yeah, and on the way from after taking that inhibitor to Baron, you guys took a lot of time to get there too. You gotta be mindful of death timers. I think after if you took inhib, you guys made a very, very quick run there and didn't even worry about sweeping and all that. You guys might have had a better opportunity there, but I think you guys took a lot of time to do that. And that's what really caused Red Team to be able to come up with a very good rebuttal.
Alright, so this is tournament draft. A couple new people here. We're saying Grammel in chat. If somebody does AFK or DC, we do have the ability to do this, which is pretty nice. So remember to do it. Ardent Censer of Janna, not really sure what I think about this.
No.
I don't mind it for one reason, and I hate to say it, but they have like 4 champions that like attack speed, or 3, because Janna doesn't really. But Volibear doesn't mind it, and Azir and Sivir really like it. And you can shield Azir or shield Sivir in these fights. And your ultimate on Janna also gives Censer to everybody it's on. I don't know. Like, your argument right here is Censer or Zeke's. You could go Mikael's too, but it's really hard to Mikael's Rengar E quickly enough sometimes. So, I guess even Mikael's for Leona as well. You could go either.
I don't know. I'm just not a big fan. I think there's just better itemization options for support. I mean, you don't necessarily want to build Frozen Heart here either. Because honestly, there's not a lot of auto attacks coming in from red side other than, well, Rengar doesn't really care. He wants to blow somebody up in a second. Vayne. I don't know. I don't like it, but on the same note, I'm not going to hate on it too much.
Yeah, I just don't see what else is that much better. That's kind of where I'm stuck at.
Right.
That's kind of where Ardent Censer and Zeke's fall into, though. And I talked about this on the podcast this week. I categorize support items in 2 categories. And this is kind of why I hated on Banner for a long time. There's support items you need to buy. So sometimes you need to buy Locket, you need to buy Mikael's. And there's support items you get to buy. So sometimes you don't actually need the Locket shield that much, and you get to buy Banner. Or you get to buy the Ardent Censer or Zeke's or whatever. But they're never like, oh, if I don't get Zeke's, my team comp is so fucked because I can't peel for my 80 carry.
Right.
They're fun items. But sometimes you don't have any items you have to have, so you get to build the fun items.
I love fun items.
When Rengar is never there to fight. Yep, we've been talking about that a lot this game, so I've been trying not to stress on it too much. But the Rengar not grouping is pretty rough. Also, I don't understand the Vamp Scepter in this build. I play a lot of Rengar, and this is the exact build I go most games. You get a second Phantom Dancer here. Or IE. Some Rengar players go IE. And you can also skip the PD and you can go Trinity then PD. But of all the options you have, like, the not effective option is Vamp. And the reason behind this was when you go into a fight on Rengar, having double lifesteal is never really going to do a lot for you. But, like, having 100% crit chance will.
Yeah.
Or GA. So that's why we lost. I think there are a lot of reasons you lost. I wouldn't just blame the Rengar.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about them.
Yeah, you guys were defending a tower without Rengar there. Like, at a certain point, if he's never there, and you guys are trying to pick a 4v5 fight, like, at a certain point, part of that's on you. You have to get smart, and you have to understand that you've got to give up a tower, let him do his thing, until he decides to join the fight. It's easy to really blame someone for a misplay, but if you're choosing to misplay harder because of his misplay, you have to take some accountability in regards to that.
I want to start keeping the statistic in Bronze Boot Camp and Battle Arena games, taking the team that warded more, and if they won or lost. So the tab is running today. It's 1-0 for the team that wards more. But look at statistics a little bit. So Rengar's really fed. He didn't do that much more damage than some of the other people on his team. I hate to look at damage done sometimes, but I'm just kind of using it to show that he really needs to group. When you get a lead like this on Rengar, you have to do something with it. As far as wards placed go, a decent amount of pinks by this team. That's actually reasonable. The Volibear, this is really impressive to me. 20 wards, 11 kills, 13 greens, and 5 pinks. That's great to see. And honestly, that's one of the reasons your team probably won the game. We didn't touch on vision a ton, just because we do try and mix it up sometimes. But you guys really did have outstanding vision control. So, the one person, Lissandra, the not buying wards, I understand you were losing lane really badly. And you did eventually. Oh, you went for sweeper. So you never bought a green ward all game, and you never bought a pink ward. That's a little difficult for me. But go over each person, a couple things they can improve on, and I can't talk at all today. I hate that these are in the mornings. Partially. Like, partway through select, invites will go out for game 2. We are only doing 2 games today because of the tournament, and I am also going to go through this a little more quickly because of the tournament. So, you want to start with supports?
Sure. Jenna, for the most part, you pretty much did your job when you needed to. I would highly recommend sometimes not using, like, your talisman and chasing too far into enemy lines that got you killed in one particular situation. You want to be a huge disengage support, and that comes with a big anchor of responsibility. If you're support charging headlong, trying to get an easy kill for your carry, and they follow, and you get them killed, that's on you. Gotta be that wall. Itemization-wise, though, I got no real complaints. Moby boots are fine. Ardent Sensor, Horse and I talked about it. I don't necessarily like the item, but I don't hate it in this situation because in terms of other itemization choices, there isn't much there, and to be fair, you finished Talisman, Sightstone, and Locket before you looked at it, so good on there. Leona in particular, there are a lot of situations where I saw you going really deep to try and get some kills to go. I would have, at a certain point, looked at your team composition and realized that you've got a Nautilus and a Rengar who are already engaging on a fight. It might have been very wise for you to be sort of a counter-engage sort of backliner to protect your Vayne, who was trying to belt out damage, and your Vel'Koz, who needs to remain basically unopposed when he's trying to use his spells and ultimate, and stopping possibly Lissandra or Volibear from really ruining your guys' fight. Because unfortunately, with 3 of you running into an Azir Janna, that's just not going to work, and you guys need to have a secondary form of peel or re-engage. And a lot of times in those team fights, I saw you diving back into Sivir, and unfortunately, you're the only one who went that far and got killed for it.
Alright, so I'm going to run down this pretty quickly, but I'll give each person at least 2 or 3 things, because that is what we always do. Once again, tournament today, head over to the T-Force Reddit to sign up. And invites for the next game will be going out shortly. Do you want to do those while I finish this up?
Yeah.
Alright, So Lissandra, biggest thing I saw is when you're playing against Rengar, you want to get to lane around 150. Big things to note, if Rengar's missing health, he's probably going to cheese you because he probably did one or both golems. And the other big thing to notice is that you teleport and he's exhaust. So, knowing that as soon as you get in the lane, you can play the lane accordingly. You could just like eat a little harass, shove for 2 really hard, and then get wave into tower at 3 and TP back. What does this do? This makes Rengar blow 1 or 2 of his pots and longsword. You come back with a second Doran, and you need to make sure you come back with a ward if you do this, but you then use like TP as an aggressive summoner spell because of how much health you gain from this. Other important notes, getting there at 150, you want to drag the creep wave away from the bush, and you also want to play further away from the bushes. You should almost be touching river if you're playing a ranged champ against Rengar, but don't be afraid to get 3 Doran strings as well, and if you're losing lane to Rengar, don't be afraid to use TP to catch up in other lanes. TPing back to your lane to die doesn't do a lot. And I know you want to stay even on farm, but you need to think about this game in swings. If you get 30 I don't know, let's say you probably only lose 15 if you don't TP back, at most. So you lose 5 to 15 CS if you don't TP back to lane. But if you TP back and you get an extra 10 CS and Rengar kills you, whereas you could have roamed bottom, you're effectively not doing much. Janna, Kargan talked about it mostly. The other thing I would touch on is the Captain enchant. I really don't see, I don't even know what green is.
Just base move speed.
Alacrity. I really don't see Alacrity making a lot of sense on Janna. Movement speed does have diminishing returns as well. And once you get Mobies and Janna W, like the Alacrity is probably giving you like 14 or 15 move speed, whereas the Captain's is really effective. Good thing besides Ardent Sensor, I don't mind the Sensor here. I think the alternatives are Zeke's, Mikael's, or Magi's. Sivir, I think you played pretty well. I think Kargan's touched on holding on to your ult sometimes. Also, you need to understand how you're playing the wave. If you're going to start W, or if you're playing against a Leona lane, you need to come and push 2 as quickly as you can. And Janna, we forgot to touch on this as well. You need to not start Q.
Oh yeah.
And you need to not harass with Q in lane. Anytime you harass with Q in lane, Leona can zone your AD carry. Q is strictly a reactionary spell. And like any matchup against an engaged support, it's 60 damage for 90 mana too. Like your auto attack does almost as much damage as your Q does. It's so bad to harass with Q, I can't even explain it. But you basically in Janna you use shield or auto attack almost all the time, and then W and Q are more reactionary spells. But just with shields and autos, you can like trade people really hard. And if you go in and you start shielding and autoing, and Leona walks up to you to try and stop it because she doesn't like getting auto attacked when your AD carry is shield too. You just Q Leona, then what does she do? Like you just win the trade, and that's kind of why Janna beats Leona. Volibear, you didn't have mobilities until 20. No, that was Nautilus. You got mobilities early, so your build is pretty good. Your vision control is also really good. Yeah, your vision control is really good. Let's see what stood out to me. I would say respect that even though you're tanky, sometimes you can die. A couple of times you died because you walked up to Rengar at 5 points under tower or something like that, and overstayed at times, but not too much stood out to me. You played well though. That was really great to see the vision control. Maybe Chilling Smite. I'm not really sure what Pink does on Volibear, and Chilling Smite can be useful on champions without gap closers. So, Azir, I really don't like the Rylai's, and for both mid lane champions, farm is really important, especially on a champion like Azir that wants to hit 6 items as fast as they can. The 158 CS at 36 minutes is kind of really hard for me to swallow. I hate to say it, I'm sure, because it's something you've probably heard a lot, but if you really want to take your mid-game game to the next level, mid lane game to the next level, last hitting is probably the biggest thing you can do at this point. The Rylai's before Hourglass also doesn't make a lot of sense to me. In this game, you either want to be doing damage or you want to like be able to survive Rengar. I would go Hourglass. The way you beat Rengar is by removing effective targets. And once you get double Hourglass and Janna and Volibear, and once Sivir gets GA, and Sivir doesn't even have to have GA. Once like Rengar's only target is Sivir, Janna can just play around that. So, like, removing targets from assassins is good. And I'm sure if you watch professional games against, like, with the Zed player, once the AD carry has QSS and once they have 2 hourglasses, it's really hard to play.
Yeah, it's similar problem with, like, Zed in particular, where at a certain point, he's out of targets to ultimate, therefore his options become so limited. He basically becomes a split push bot.
So, Rengar. Oh, can you invite? Here, I'll just invite him. You want to give me an invite really quickly. So, Rengar, biggest thing is you need to group. Killing Lissandra and she's not worth gold doesn't do anything. Both mid laners didn't have flash a lot. That's something you can ask. And if you're gonna split push top, you basically you gave up a dragon fight, and that was like the big point in the match overview where the other team started to come back. This dragon fight that you see, you guys are red team, so you got some kills afterwards, but blue team got the dragon, and this is the fight that they came back. So we'll look at the match overview, and it went from like a 759 gold lead to a 2.9k gold lead pretty quickly for blue team. So like a 3,500 gold swing. And not only did you not show up to that fight, you didn't push top because you were doing double golems. I hate to call like an individual player out this much, but when you have a lead like this, doing double golems is so inexcusable. Like I can't even begin to wrap my head around it.
It's rough, but it's also a good example of, because you get a lot of questions too, where like people don't understand how to carry games when they get a lead, and that's one of the big things you do. You had a lead, and once you start enforcing that goal advantage in other lanes and really putting pressure across the map, that's when you become a bigger influence in that game. Like there's a point where you could have just taken your ultimate at level 6 and just visited bot lane and really surprised Sivir and Janna, or just wait and kill Azir and then force some objectives. You've got a gold lead. You have to start flexing that gold lead in other lanes.
Yep, and other points. A lot of times when you combo, you should be using 5-point E. You shouldn't be using 5-point Q. 5-point E is more effective and they can't flash out of it. Also, what was I going to say? For 6 item, Trinity, IE, not a lifesteal item. You just want to do crit damage. But basically, like, you just need to group here. And it's not just this. Like, you can say, oh, blah, 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 I'm carrying. I need to do whatever. Like, I'm the only one on my team doing well, blah, blah, blah. Rengar is a very specific champion. And if you don't group on Rengar and in the game as quickly as you can, you lose. Like, if you're a Rengar player and your average game time is over 35 minutes, your win rate is never going to be that high. Because Rengar needs to just, like, destroy the mid game, and your CDR boots are pointless to get to, like if you're not spamming ultimates, and you can't spam ultimates if the only thing you do is walk top lane. So Nautilus, talk about why Swifties aren't that effective. Your team really suffered from vision control. You guys had 10 less wards, which isn't a huge deal, but the wards cleared was pretty big, and a lot of that's on you if you're sitting on tier 1 warding totem as a jungler. So that sticks out to me. Didn't have magic resist for a really long time against double AP. The Swifties kind of go into that. Rushing Righteous Glory before Cinderhulk is also not good. Let's see, what else? No boots and mobility until 20 minutes. Like, most of the issues I saw were item buys. Like, when there are this many issues in item buys, it's hard for me to look at a lot else. But Kargan talked about team comp a little bit, and Liliana was engaging a little bit too much. Nautilus is strictly like a better peel champ than like most champions in this game. And honestly, it wouldn't even be bad if Nautilus and Leona peeled. But the same thing goes for Leona, because you can't talk to your teammates in solo queue, or you shouldn't. If Leona sees Nautilus engaging, she should peel. But if Nautilus sees Leona engaging, he can peel too. Like, Nautilus is really good at peeling, so certainly something to think about. Vayne, Q is a reactive spell. It's not a gap closer. You can't just Q into people and tank skill shots. The biggest thing you can do if you want to improve your game Vayne play is always be thinking about when you're going to use your Q. Don't just use your Q because I need to move from point A to point B faster. Especially if that's in a straight line forward. As far as lane phase goes, you need to push for 2 harder. Like, they didn't punish you very much, but If you're playing with Leona, you just need to push for 2. If you never get summoners in Leona lane, you can't expect to win. But I would start with that. And last hitting. Like, the same thing for Azir. If your last hitting is this poor, that will be the easiest way you can improve your AD carry game a couple of divisions. Leona, we talked about Leona for the most part. Vel'Koz, didn't like the Rylai's. In lane, don't be afraid to ult them to either kill them or get them out of lane. Just understanding how much damage your champion deals is a pretty big deal. And last thing, I would say those are the 3 things I would work on. But, I mean, there's so many times where Kargan and I were just, like, yelling at Vel'Koz to ult because he could kill the person and he couldn't. And that's not good.
I'd highly recommend, like, if you're not 100% familiar with champion, you're playing normals, throw out all the spells. It's better to not get a kill, but know that you've exhausted your resource pool, as opposed to not getting killed, but having that ult on hand. And not knowing if you could have gotten that kill. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm. So, I like the Swifties to try and keep my passive up in team fights. You'll probably keep your passive up more with Mercs, just because you won't be eating hard CC as much. You're also, like, the biggest reason you eat Mercs, and, like, if Swifties gave a resistance, people would buy them a lot. Because, the slow duration and the move speed on Swifties is actually pretty good. Like, if you compare that to the tenacity on Mercs, it's probably a little better. The reason people don't buy Swifties is they don't give you any effective stats beyond that. And not having that magic resist, not having the armor from Ninja Tabbies, not having the ganking presence from the mobility boots early game, they're not really giving you anything else. Alright.
That and there's slow reduction too in the mastery tree. Tenacity, is there tenacity in the defensive mastery tree? Can't quite remember. But tenacity is really good.
Mm-hmm. So, can you explain if I hit creeps level 1 against just Sivir or any matchup? Alright, so if you're playing Leona, generally you want to be making sure you hit 2 first. Leona's like the queen of level 2 cheese. So most matchups you want to. Like, what does your level 1 harass do if they play it correctly? So, you got off some good harass at level 1, but let's pretend I'm playing the lane with Kargan. I'm playing Sivir in this lane, and Leona walks up to me and hits me. 1, she's not going to do it, because I have 500 range on her, and I can orb walk. So, we'll remove that from the equation. 2, let's say, for whatever reason, all intents and purposes, she does. Well, Kargan, what do you do as Janna?
Shield you?
Shield me, and what does Leona do?
Cry a little bit.
Yeah, Leona can't do anything. Yeah. Like, you walking up to them and queuing them doesn't. There's no effective purpose to it.
However, you walking up to the minion wave and smacking minions so you can get level 2 faster creates a whole new dynamic of frustration.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Leona has a very strong level 2. Counterpoint is she has a very weak level 1. And that's kind of, like, again, balance and all that jazz. Level 1, just go and hit minions and start to get them lower. That way, Bane can last hit them. You guys can get level 2, and then you guys can start enforcing some pressure and try and get some early summoners burn.
Mm-hmm. And the same thing, too, if you hit level 2 first on Leona. So, let's say Kargan and I are playing that same lane as Janna. Let's say we have 2 when you have 2 as Leona. Leona engages me as Sivir. Janna basically just E's me and she Qs you. But if Leona hits 2 first, what can you do as Janna? Nothing. All you can do is E Sivir.
Unfortunately, that shield's not going to survive that sort of damage. Do you use my face to mount procs? Generally speaking, you want to use your first one as soon as possible. That way you can start recharging your next proc or your third proc sooner. Use the second one when you need to. If you guys are taking a lot of harass, go ahead and use it. But if, for whatever reason, they're playing super safe and no one's taking damage, you can hold on to it for a second. Or, additionally, if you know you're going to hit level 2 soon, you can use that for a last hit to get that level 2 cheese and do a sort of a surprise hit level 2 and then immediately Zenith Blade in.
Are you going to stream the tournament Horse Doctor? Yep, I'll either stream my point of view or I'll cast it. I'm not sure yet, but it will be streamed by Horse Doctor somehow. Alright, so yeah, there are 2 ways you can use there are 3 ways you can use Targans. Either you can use them for sustain, You can use them to hit difficult CS that may be awkward for your AD carry to hit. So if you see your AD carry getting zoned, you can just walk up and use it. Or you can hold it. The reason behind holding it is level 2 is the first wave and 2 creeps in second wave for... Or is it 3?
I think it's 2.
I just had brain lag.
If it's melee, if they're 2 melee creeps, I think it's 2.
Yeah, it's 2 melee. Alright, so you use it on the second melee. And you do this just because you can kill it more quickly than a lane without targets if you do this. So you're effectively kind of ensuring that you hit level 2 first if you save targets for second melee in the second wave. It's also it's very fast, and if you just start walking forward and you auto attack that second melee and you keep walking forward, in all honesty, until Diamond, they're really not gonna know what the hell just hit them. So, is Spell Thieves still gone? I need to know. I have no idea.
No. Frost Queen's Claim was disabled, not Spell Thieves. So you guys can still build that. It's not gone.
So the stream will go down for about 15 seconds. We will be right back. And this is just to